Hey, what's going on YouTube? And welcome back to Tech Conversations. Firstly, if you haven't already, make sure to check out the Discord, completely free to join. So I'll put a link to it in the description below. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to sign up to Webull first. Right now, if you deposit $100 or more, you could earn up to 20 free fractional shares by using my link in the description below. Remember, each share is valued between $3,000 and $3,000. So go ahead and sign up to Webull first. Now, today I want to talk about trading futures on Webull. So I'll put a link to this specific page in the description below. The reason being that you also need to sign up for a futures account. And if you scroll down on this page, there are 3 simple steps you need to take to start trading futures on Webull. So you'll need to open your futures account, then fund your futures account, then you can start futures trading. So I'll put a link to this specific page in the description below. There's also a lot of great resources on here. If you have questions on trading futures, it could help you out. So also make sure to download the Webull desktop app. That's where we're going to be showing you everything here today. So let's jump over to the Webull desktop app now. So here we are on the Webull desktop app. So once we're here, you'll notice that on the left, there are multiple different icons here. This last one here should say Futures Trader. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and click on there. Now, remember earlier I mentioned you need to have a specific futures account to be able to trade futures. If we take a look here at the top right now I am on a margin account, my individual margin account. I need to make sure that I've switched over to my futures account. So if I click on here, you'll notice that it'll show you here all the different accounts you have. So I have a cash account, margin account, and then as you can see, my futures account is right here. So we need to go ahead and click on our futures account when we want to trade futures here on Webull. So now we're on our futures account, we're on the Webull desktop app here, and again, we're on this futures trader section. So firstly, what is a futures contract? So a futures contract is a legal agreement between a buyer and a seller to either buy or sell a commodity like crude oil or a financial instrument like E-mini S&P 500 at a pre-established price and date in the future. Now I will mention right now, physical delivery is not permitted at Webull. Now keep in mind, I'm not going to go into the extreme basic things about trading futures. This video assumes you know at least the very basics when it comes to trading futures. Now, where do we find the different types of futures that we can trade here on Webull? So from this page here, there is this section right here. And all the way to the top right in this section, we can go ahead and click on this drop down and we can see all the different available types here. So what do we have here? So we have, we can trade indices, we can trade interest rates, currencies, agriculture, metal, energies, and cryptos here. So you can see there are many different types of futures here that we can trade. For today's demo, I'm going to go over to the equity index futures here. And I'm just going to be using micro E-mini S&P 500 index futures. So as you can see at the top here now, we can see which one we're on. So right now we're on micro E-mini S&P 500. If you wanted instead of micro E-mini NASDAQ 100, you just have to click at the top here and you can, go more to the right to see everything that's available. But again, for today's demo, I'm just going to stick with micro E-mini S&P 500 here. So every futures product has multiple contracts. We can see multiple contracts here with different expiration dates. And on Webull, the contract that has the most activity and trading volume is referred to the main contract. So notice the first contract we see here, it says MES main. So this is going to be the contract that has the most activity and trading volume. So these two right here are the exact same contracts. These are both the Micro E-mini S&P 500 June 25 contracts. But this one happens to be the most active and the one with the most trading volumes. It's also the main contract here. Now, we also need to talk about the symbols here, because there is a formula for reading these contracts here. So if we take a look, you'll notice all these different contracts, they all start with MES, 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 MES. So that first part there is known as the root symbol. So MES stands for Micro E-mini S&P 500 for this specific case here. Now notice that after MES, they all have a different letter. So this one has M, U, Z, H, and then M again here. So that symbol there is actually going to be the expiration month code. So there's a code for rating these, and you can search it up on Google to see what month each code is associated with. But just, telling you right now, M is going to be June, U is going to be September, Z is going to be December, H is going to be March. So that's going to be the expiration month code. What month does this contract expire in? So again, if we're looking at this one expires because it's M is associated with June, it expires in June. We can also see that from the name here. Now, a couple of these end in 5, and then you'll see some of them end in 6. So at the end, it's going to be followed by the expiration year code. So in this instance here, 5 is referring to 2025. So this expires June 2025. If we look at this last one here, again, M is June, and then 6 would stand for 2026. So this one expires June 2026, or again, we can also see it over here under the name as well. So it's very important you know how to read these symbols here. Now next, let's talk about margin here very quickly. So let me click on this contract here. Notice up here, it's switched over to that contract. So again, we have MES, which is again stands for Micro E-mini S&P 500, M, which stands for June, expiring in June, and then 5 stands for 2025, so expiring in 2025. So here we can see the price, and as you can see, we can see a lot of other information in here. So let's talk about margin here very quickly. So to open a futures position here, you only need a fraction of the contract's total value, which also makes trading futures very risky, right? You should know exactly what you're doing if you're trading futures. Otherwise, you could lose a lot of money. And so if we take a look here, the initial margin, which we see right here, initial margin, this requirement is the amount of money you must deposit when you open a futures position. And as you can see, there's 2 other types of margin here. I'm not going to get into those. You can read up on those. But remember, there is this margin here when trading futures. Now, we also see last trading day. So that's also very important here. So for this one, June 20, what does that mean? So the last trading day is going to be the final day that the futures contract may be traded before the delivery of the contract's underlying commodity must occur. So that's another very important key detail here. Now, let's go ahead and let's look at what is known as the contract specs here. So where do we find that? Notice that there's a more button here. We can go ahead and click on it. Here's where you can find the contract specs. And there's some very important key details in here. So firstly, we can see the underlying group equity index. Next, we see contract units. So this is very important. So it says 5 index points. So what does that mean? So this tells us how much money we'll gain or lose from a 1 point move in the futures contract. So for example, right now, this is 5649.75. Let's say we buy this contract, and then this goes up a point right after we buy it. That means we would be up $5. If we buy this contract and this drops by 1 point, then this is telling me I would be down $5. So that's very important to know. Now we also see minimum fluctuation, 0.25. What does that mean? So this displays the smallest possible price movement that a futures contract can move up or down. So for example, here we have 651.75. The smallest possible price movement is 0.25. So the smallest it can move is either up 0.25 or down 0.25. That's the smallest. It's not going to move smaller than that. So that's also very important to know. Then we also have the delivery manner. So this one is financially settled. And then we can also see the trading hours here. And in fact, if you click on the spec link here, which is the exchange spec here, you can see some more information. But those are the key important details you need to know here for trading futures. Again, it's just a very quick overview. You should have a more in-depth understanding of futures before trading futures. But again, just very quickly to help you guys understand that. Now, how do we actually place an order then here on Webull? So let's say we're ready to trade this specific contract that we're on. So MES M5. So the micro E-mini S&P 500 expiring June 2025. What do I do here now? So what we're going to do now is we would go to that specific contract in here. And so it's this one right here. So what we need to do then is right click. And notice from here, there's multiple different things you can do. But the first one's going to say create order. So we can click on create order. And then at the bottom here, notice that there's this order entry section here. So from here, we can create an order. So let's see at all the different things here. So firstly, we have strategy. If I click on this, we have single or we have first trigger stop. I'm not going to get into first trigger stop here. That's an interesting thing to know though and learn. We'll just keep this as single. Next, we have the symbol. So what are we trading? We're trading MES M5. So again, the micro E-mini S&P 500 expiring June of 2025. And you can click on here and search for something else, right? So if you wanted instead MESU5, we can do that and select it from here. So you can use this to search up something else if you want. But again, let's just stick with this one here. Side. So remember, we can buy this contract, we can sell this contract. We can also go the opposite way here, right? Depending on how you feel about this futures contract. And then we have quantity. So of course you can modify that, right? You want to buy more than one contract. You can go 2, 3, 4, 5, as you can see here. Then we have order type. So we have 4 different order types here. So limit order, market order, stop order, or stop limit order. And then if you do, for example, limit order, you can enter your limit price right here. Of course, you can modify that. Now, once you're ready to go, you can go ahead and place your order right here. As you can see, there is a transaction fee. So there are fees. You should be aware of those. So if we hover over this, we see commission fees, clearing fees, exchange fees, and regulatory fees. So you can read up more on that on Webull's website, but just be aware there are some fees here potentially. Now, again, we would place the order and you would enter the trade. One thing I do want to mention here is, how do we close out of our trade? So let's say I go ahead and place this order and I buy this futures contract. Well, how do I get out of it? So to get out of it, you just need to do the opposite of what you first did. So if I bought this contract, I would just need to sell the exact same contract, right? So if I enter this, I bought it, now I want to get out of it, tomorrow, I would come in here and just make sure, right, we're still on the same symbol. So this one again would be MESM5. Instead of buying, we would sell instead. Make sure quantity is the same. And then we would just place the order. That's how we get out of our trade. So that's how we trade futures here on Webull. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Check out the Discord, a link to that in the description below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys next time.